Precise, eloquent, God-fearing, a trade unionist of rare creed, a statesman like no other, are all attributes of Zambia's second president, Fredick Jacob Titus Chiluba. Fredick Chiluba was born on April 30th, 1943, and was raised in the mining town of Kitwe on the Copperbelt province. At that time, Zambia was heavily dependent on a single export commodity, copper. As such, Zambia had one of the highest levels of industrialization on the continent and the most developed trade union movement, apart from that in South Africa. This served as an ideal career launchpad for a charismatic, smart, and articulate young man that Chiluba was. Chiluba, a self-made man and an active trade unionist, would rise through the ranks from being a bus conductor, an accounts assistant at Atlas Copco, and onwards to become president of the Zambia Congress of Trade Unions, ZCTU, in 1974. By the 1980s, relations between the government and the trade unions deteriorated due to an attempt at incorporation by the government of President Kenneth Kaunda. As president of ZCTU, Fredick Chiluba changed his attitude from that of automatic support for the then ruling party, the United National Independence Party UNIP, to that of monitoring its performance. The one-party state became more dictatorial and the economic system deteriorated. The last 1986 and the 1990 food riots were, as a result of the degenerated economy, a clarion call for change to a liberal political and economic system came timely. In 1990, Zambia's first Republican president, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, succumbed to calls for a multi-party system and amended the constitution, paving the way for the multi-party politics.
I'm glad, therefore, to take this opportunity to say now, those who want to form their small parties are most welcome, provided they know that we want peace in Zambia. Peace, stability, unity, and development. This fellow is signing on behalf of 8.5 million Zambians.
A few hours away, we are saying farewell to our founding president. Let us say farewell to our president. Bye-bye, Dr. Kaunda. The hour.
On October 31st, 1991, Chiluba won the elections to become Zambia's first democratically elected president on the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy MMD ticket, ending the 27-year rule of Zambia's first president, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda of UNIP. President Fredick Chiluba was sworn in as second Republican president on November 2nd, 1991, witnessed by a mammoth crowd at the High Court with 83% of the vote and 125 of the then 150 seats in the National Assembly. In his inaugural speech, President Chiluba expanded on his campaign slogan with resounding declaration, "The hour has come to build a better Zambia."
The greatest lesson we can learn from the past 27 years is that freedom is at the core of every successful nation. In the world and in Africa today, the great nations, the prosperous nations, are the free nations. A new breeze is blowing in Zambia, the breeze of democracy and freedom, the breeze of human rights. The winds of change predicted for Africa decades ago have finally reached our land.
Chiluba's victory was not only important to Zambia, but to the entire African continent and the world at large. It was the first in a subsequent series of government handovers through the democratic ballot box to be witnessed in Sub-Sahara region and one of the first on the African continent. However, at the time of his ascension to power, Chiluba inherited an economy that was unproductive and had a negative growth rate. Meal, food shortages, and queues were the order of the day.
At the time he became president, this country's economy was very, very bad, worse than it's ever been. You could hardly find soft drinks like, Coca-Colas and all these things. The things that now young people sell by the roadside were not available at all. Only to those with the foreign exchange would go to buy from the shops that were there, foreign exchange shops, that only accepted the foreign exchange. During his time, when he came into power, there was a lot of suffering. Basics were not available. People had to travel to Zimbabwe to go and buy soap, toilet paper, things like that. Meal, our mothers had to queue at state shops at 4 a.m. in order to buy meal for their families. So that was the state of the economy that Dr. Chiluba assumed.
At that time, the Zambian economy was undergoing turbulent times. The country was also highly indebted, and there was need for a wide range of reforms. Chiluba immediately embarked on an economic transformation agenda through the Structural Adjustment Program with the help and knowledge of donor countries and the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank.
During that time, we had to introduce what was known as a Structural Adjustment Program to really adjust, to structurally change the economy of Zambia. It meant many things. To some, when we closed some of the businesses, state businesses that were not making money, had they been in private hands, they would have been long liquidated. But being state companies, they depended very much on the finances of Zanaco. So Zanaco was the one suffering and bearing the brunt of supporting state companies. Dr. Chiluba, I recall very well, at one meeting we said, but President, we can't go on with this structure program, which people had started calling Satana Ali Pamushi. Yes, that SAP was known. I said, President, let's abandon this thing. It's not making us unpopular. President Chiluba said, no, the issue is not to be popular or become unpopular. What we are trying to do is to suffer today in order to have a better tomorrow.
President Chiluba instituted a series of remedial market-oriented reforms, such as the removal of subsidies on maize meal and petroleum products, the liberalization of foreign exchange, and the privatization of public enterprises. It was in fact the liberalization agenda upon which Chiluba was elected as president. Zambia, under Chiluba, then implemented the Enhanced Initiative for Heavily Indebted Poor Countries, HIPIC. The Heavily Indebted Poor Countries, HIPIC, are a group of 37 developing countries with high levels of poverty and debt overhang, which are eligible for special assistance from the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank.
Perhaps the international community could consider urgent and appropriate remedial action before these programs become instruments for further impoverishment. The debt overhang continues to plague many developing countries, especially in Africa. The heavily indebted poor country HIPC initiative is a welcome initiative. However, for the case of Zambia, it has been recognized that for social development to take place, we need more than HIPC. We need to ease the conditions for HIPC accession, such as the length of completion, and also consider complete debt cancellation.
We were undertaking economic reforms seriously, and we were facing a very fundamental transformation in the way the economy was being run. One of them, which I'll point to even before I come to it, is the fact that the economy used to be dominated by public enterprises and parastatals. And we had to change this to what you see today, where the private sector dominates the economy.
As a born-again Christian with evident genuineness in his passionate prayers, President Chiluba showed his commitment to God by declaring Zambia as a Christian nation on December 29, 1991.
I have now entered into a covenant, Lord, with the living God, and therefore I want to make the following declaration. I declare today that I submit myself as president to the Lordship of Jesus Christ.
Hallelujah.
I likewise submit the government and the entire nation of Zambia to the Lordship of Jesus Christ. Amen. I further declare that Zambia is a Christian nation.
At this declaration, some among the clergy were enthused and supported the declaration, which over the years has become a point of diverse discussion.
I recall many times sitting with him and trying to pick his mind and hearing his passion and his desire to be part of transformation. As a spiritual leader, I was interested also in picking part of why he was thinking about Zambia and its roots being reconnected to God. And in those moments, I heard his heart. His heart was to see that we would be able to have the covenant that God had put on his heart become a reality. Looking back now, it is interesting to observe the fact that the declaration of Zambia as a Christian nation has become a controvertible arrangement. And that's a bit of a concern. But I'm one of those who needs to be able to state that the declaration of Zambia is here to stay. This was a legacy issue for Dr. Chiluba. He was aware that it would go beyond himself, and it needed to be. This declaration is now in the hands of the people.
Foreign exchange was not easy to access in the pre-Chiluba time. However, this was eased when the Chiluba government adopted the free market policy. As part of President Chiluba's economic reforms, the Zambia Revenue Authority, ZRA, was formed on 4th April 1994 as a corporate body with independent conditions from those of government. Under the new liberalized economy, the government made policy decisions that led to the changing of the features of the Zambian currency from one bearing the portrait of the head of state to one which bore important national monuments that characterized the rich culture and heritage of the Zambian people. President Chiluba's government has been credited for encouraging Zambians to adopt the spirit of entrepreneurship. Today, we see many Zambians engage in their own small-scale businesses, thus reducing the levels of unemployment among the citizenry. These economic interventions and other remedial reforms would have yielded positive immediate and long-term outcomes. As many who interacted with him say, President Chiluba was a leader who had a heart for the people. As the saying goes, heart cannot be explained. It can only be experienced. To underscore this, President Chiluba promoted land and home ownership by implementing land reforms and the housing empowerment policy alongside market liberalization and structural adjustment. This acted as a stimulus for the housing market and increased investments in housing, a phenomenon that is visible even today.
President Chiluba's policy on housing empowerment allowed workers to buy government houses that they were living in, or if they work for parastatal companies, they buy those houses, or if they had been renting a council house for some time, the sitting tenant, they would buy it. Now, most Zambians didn't have enough money to buy these houses. So President Chiluba said Zambians must own property. He declared that we shall slash the prices, so that if a house was, for example, a council house was, say, 5 or 10 million, he said, well, it shall be sold for 300,000. And we're talking about an invest kwacha, which would have been 300 kwacha. Some of the houses were bought for 10 kwacha to allow the people to own these houses.
One of the milestones achieved through the housing privatization policy was the Presidential Housing Initiative, PHI. The Presidential Housing Initiative, PHI, was targeted at Zambians who could not afford quality shelter.
Nalioli nyaba manu efyo bakala chitaba chitamayanda ngamona tichamu afyo kulasonkela te kushitisha mwila shitisha wafuma mufye washamo bambi bale kulipirolelia. That is what empowerment means. If you can't afford to stay in a council house or government house or any house that you buy from the mines, don't force yourself. Walk out, it's still your house. Rent it out and you receive rent. And you are a boss. Wakuladi afya every day. That is what empowerment is all about. Nobody is running away from the houses they bought, not one. Not from the mines, not from the council. And this is what, you know, by UNIPA are very surprised. Wherever they are saying, Kaka Muntwe, why didn't we think of that also?
Many families today are still benefiting from the housing privatization policy. There are many testimonies from youth whose parents financed their education through proceeds from these properties.
President Chiluba announced the sale of government houses, government and council houses, to sitting tenants who included civil servants like my father. We had to move out of the house, put it on rent, and move into a smaller house, some place in Divala. So the rentals which came from that house were able to provide for the basic things needed at home, and also were able to send us to school up to university level.
Zambia, with its liberalized economy, democratic system of governance, and a strife-free social environment, designed an incentive package to create a sound investment climate for both domestic and foreign prospective investors. The MMD government, under the leadership of President Fredick Chiluba, also instituted the sale of public enterprises through the privatization program, which included the mines, among others. These far-reaching reforms extended to the transport sector, an area that was grappling with inefficiency and a deplorable road network. Before 1990, most roads were in a deplorable state, such that it was a nightmare to drive locally between cities or towns.
Just look where I'm standing.
Yes, sir.
Morning, sir.
Morning, sir.
Morning.
Morning, sir.
And this is the smallest. Huh? The shallowest, smallest, and we are going to what you call open pits and craters.
Craters, sir.
Craters and open pits.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can mine copper out of them. So let us go.
construction of roads was high on the Chiluba government agenda, and most roads were tarred and given a new lease of life. One of the roads built was the Chingola-Lusaka Highway.
The road from Chingola to Kapirimposhi or somewhere there, was gone. To many potholes. But Dr. Chiluba arranged with the Danish government for support, and we were supported in repairing the road from my constituency, Chingola, coming to Lusaka.
It took days to travel from one town to the other as buses were few. People had to spend nights at bus stations to board a bus. Chiluba's government waived import duty on buses for 2 years and brought the influx of privately owned buses on Zambian roads. Today, one can commute on a return trip from Lusaka to Chipata in the eastern province of Zambia the same day.
For the transport sector, I think he did Zambia a great service, because if you remember, UBZ was collapsing. UBZ, when the time of UBZ was there was long queues of people. Then, when he brought in this policy, I wasn't around. I was staying in London, in UK. The liberalization of the transport sector has brought competition. Hence, it has brought proper transport network. I mean, today, if you want to go anywhere, you got these small buses, you can jump in and quickly reach your destination. Before, it could take you hours and hours.
In the education sector, Chiluba embarked on building basic schools across the country with the help of Japanese International Cooperation Agency, JICA. Today, we see many basic schools in almost all townships, which were as a result of the Chiluba administration. The MMD government introduced user fees in both education and health to help build and maintain the services. Chiluba's government also embarked on providing health facilities at people's doorsteps. This saw the upgrading and building of clinics in townships to provide quality health care as close to the family as possible. As one of Africa's pioneering democrats, President Chiluba's democratic crusade extended beyond Zambia's borders. He quickly became a statesman of world repute and one of the most coveted leadership figures with some of the finest oratory abilities. His captivating speeches left people of all creed and caliber in awe.
Mr. Chairman, that is why this forum, therefore, accords us the rare opportunity to influence the definition of a collective global agenda of common action to address poverty, underdevelopment, and the iniquitous economic relationships that are designed to consign the majority of the world population to poverty and marginalization.
Development is about the quality of life of the people. It is one thing to chant slogans about development and another to create a conducive atmosphere and furnish people with means for self-fulfillment in their individual and collective endeavors to improve their lives.
While we acknowledge the necessity for Africa to take responsibility for its own problems, we also recognize that the primary responsibility for the maintenance of international peace and security lies with the United Nations Security Council. It is with this in mind that I wish to appeal to this august body to send a peacekeeping force to the DRC with an appropriate mandate and size to tackle the complex and unique problems in that country.
As an icon of African diplomacy, President Chiluba did not delight only in making Zambia a beacon of democracy, but understood the value of ensuring peace, good governance, and peaceful government transitions in neighboring countries, and thus became the peacemaker that would step up to broker peace deals in Angola and the Democratic Republic of Congo.
In the area of peace initiatives, you recall that in October 1994, he was the mediator for the Angola peace process. And the Lusaka Protocol on Angola was signed by President José Eduardo dos Santos and Dr. Jonas Savimbi here in Lusaka. President Chiluba sent me on many missions to Angola to meet President José Eduardo dos Santos, and also UN missions to the border area between Angola and Zambia.
He did the same in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where he managed to end the war in that country by breaking a peace deal between the late Joseph Désert Kabila and the Mobutu regime, and later between Kabila and the warring factions in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
In August 1998, there was a rebellion in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The SADC region, because they knew of the expertise and the experience of President Chiluba, they unanimously appointed him mediator of the Congo peace process. He was to successfully broker a ceasefire in July 1999. Not only did he broker the ceasefire, but President Chiluba's initiatives were worked and was able to obtain the ceasefire from the founding members of that movement, fondly called the Fondateur.
During President Chiluba's tenure of presidency, people freely associated and expressed themselves without fear of being haunted by state agents. The press was also free to criticize him without them getting reprisals. By the end of his tenure in 2001, real GDP grew at a rate of 3.5%, and inflation fell to its lowest in the preceding 2 decades. President Chiluba was a well-rounded, socialized human being to whom was ascribed many attributes. President Fredick Chiluba died on 18th June 2011, so June 18th every year is observed as Memorial Day of the passing on of Zambia's second Republican president, Fredick Titus Jacob Chiluba. Since his demise, there has been an outcry from concerned citizens that the man had never been remembered in any way, despite the good works that he did during his tenure of office compared to other leaders who have lived in Plot 1.
The way President Chiluba, the late, has been treated from the time that he left office up to this time in the grave, I haven't been too comfortable with this kind of an arrangement. Yeah, today anyone who talks about Chiluba would talk about the bad side of Chiluba, the perceived bad side of Chiluba. But Chiluba to me was an angel.
The tribulations that he went through at the very hands of his friends. Yeah. Dr. Chiluba did not suffer indignity at the hands of his enemies, whatever. No, he suffered at the hands of those very people that he himself chose, indeed.
The late President Chiluba, popularly known as FTJ, was so many things to so many people he interacted with.
wapeza mavuto mziko lapo tozuke kutenda mdala ona ona ere kwangu ne watu wotenda nini pesa uto mairo mairo era pesa uto atandi uto yayo
brought actually what is called democracy and liberalization of the mind. I think those are the great things Chiluba has done, more than anybody else. He's the one who has brought freedom.
I knew Mr. Chiluba as a son of the soil, having born in my area or from my area.
I knew Mr. Chiluba as a trade unionist. When he became the Republican president, the second Republican president, he did a lot for this country. One, you talk about the freedoms that we are enjoying. Freedom of assembly, freedom of the press, freedom of association, name it. It was Dr. Chiluba. I think such things were not there before.
President Chiluba was very meticulous. You know, he saw every little point. I was a university lecturer and sometimes I could talk without this, that. But I quickly learned that with a president, you had to be specific and don't make mistake. He was so meticulous that you don't throw your like a draft speech anyhow like that. No.
In my view, they served under very difficult conditions. People look at the presidency as, everything being there, okay, the food the state may buy and things like that for you. But they undergo tremendous soul searching. A lot of them, you would walk into a president's office and he's looking at you, but his mind is elsewhere. And those are the problems they were enduring. So in my opinion, we should continue to respect our leaders and pray for them and wish them the best, indeed. But certainly respect for leaders should be there.
Really to be remembered as a man who cherished democracy, not only inter-party democracy, but intra-party democracy. He encouraged contestation within the party itself, at all levels, from the branch up to the National Executive Committee.
We must thank the late president, and we must keep praying for him. And we must understand that he brought these liberalization policies very intelligently. He handled matters where it was, because we were lost, everybody was lost. It was new.
His family has fond memories of a man they called father.
The second term into resignation, we had become grown-ups. And so you see even the shift in relationship from father to confidant, father to friend, and that sort of thing. It's one of those very indelible things that you miss to this day. A father is a father, president, so on and so forth. His absence is obviously has been a very difficult thing to deal with. Yeah.
President Fredick Jacob Chiluba left so much that we all can celebrate about his life. A hallmark of accolades as a leader of this great nation, Zambia, who loved his people. A democrat, an amusing personality, a peacemaker, a parent, and one of Africa's finest statesmen. All these but to describe one man, gone but not forgotten, Fredick Jacob Chiluba.
Mwimbona kufuala matai, temukalale na fiadilwe, mwimbona majeke chokulepa, nandibona likwata kwesu, shabanga bana banomba, bashaishi boko bafuma.